I want you to take a second and really picture your typical weekend. You wake up on a Saturday morning. What's the very first thing you do?
Are you throwing off the covers to go for a run? Or are you hitting snooze 3 times before dragging yourself to the coffee machine?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Think about the rhythm of those 2 days. The sudden realization that you have to do laundry, the decision to order takeout instead of cooking because you're just exhausted, the Sunday afternoon slump.
We all have these deeply ingrained, highly predictable routines.
We do. But, and this is what we're getting into today, what if those exact mundane habits, the chores, the lounging around, the grocery shopping, what if they were actually the most powerful cognitive key to unlocking a completely new skill?
It sounds almost counterintuitive at first. I mean, usually when we think of learning something difficult, we imagine having to leave our comfort zones, not retreating into them.
Yeah.
But that contradiction is exactly what we are unpacking today. For this deep dive, we have a transcript from a program called the Everyday English Club.
Right, featuring Lily, Tom, and Anna.
Exactly. And on the surface, it's a very straightforward beginner English lesson focused on weekend vocabulary. But our goal today is to look way past the basic vocabulary.
We're digging into the mechanics of it.
We are going to use this transcript to dissect the underlying behavioral psychology of language acquisition. And really, why anchoring complex new information at the most boring parts of your life is actually a masterclass in instructional design.
Look, when I first read through this source material, my initial thought was, well, I thought it was just incredibly basic. I mean, Tom and Anna are quite literally talking about washing clothes and ordering pizza.
It's objectively simple.
Very simple. But if we put on our behavioral psychology hats for a second, what they're actually doing is executing a highly sophisticated form of environmental anchoring. It takes all the intimidation out of the process.
Completely.
Because when you try to learn a new language, or really any complex skill, it can feel like you are standing at the bottom of a sheer cliff face. You're terrified of looking stupid.
Yeah, the vulnerability is huge.
It is. And this transcript entirely bypasses that fear. So let's break down the mechanics of how they achieve that so effortlessly.
The primary mechanism at play here is the deliberate lowering of what linguists call the affective filter.
The affective filter.
Right. It's essentially an emotional barrier that dictates how much new information your brain is willing to let in. When you are anxious, stressed, or feeling out of your depth, that filter goes up.
It's a biological response, right?
Exactly. The stress hormones flood your system, your amygdala flares up, and your brain shifts into a protective mode rather than a receptive mode.
Yeah.
You literally cannot encode new information effectively when you are in that state.
I think we need a good analogy for this because affective filter sounds a bit dry. Let's think of the affective filter like a massive, intimidating bouncer standing outside a nightclub in your brain.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So when you are stressed out, maybe you're in a classroom, the teacher calls on you, and you suddenly forget every French word you've ever learned, that bouncer just crosses his arms and says, nope, nobody's getting in tonight. No new vocabulary is entering this club.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Your brain just shuts down the learning process to protect your ego.
Yeah.
And by anchoring their lesson in something as universally understood and unthreatening as a weekend routine, Lily, Tom, and Anna are essentially giving that bouncer the night off.
They're setting up a VI. Okay, so let's look at how they actually execute this on the ground. The very first thing Lily does after welcoming everyone is establish the roadmap. She asks, what do we do on the weekend?
Simple, direct.
And immediately, Tom chimes in to say he loves weekends because they are a great time to relax and have fun. Anna agrees and points out that talking about this is a great way to learn useful verbs like go, watch, cook, and meet.
They're stating the objective clearly up front, which is a classic educational framework. But the critical move happens right after that.
Right.
The instructors don't just throw a list of verbs at the listener. They immediately move into a highly specific chronological structure. The source text begins by breaking down a typical Saturday morning, starting from the very moment of waking up.
Lily asks Tom what he usually does on a Saturday morning.
And Tom says, I usually sleep in. That means I wake up later than on weekdays, maybe around 9 or 10 o'clock.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Why do we need to start at the exact moment of waking up? If I'm an adult taking a language course, I know what a morning is. I don't need the concept of a Saturday morning explained to me. Isn't taking it this slowly a bit, I don't know, patronizing?
It would be if the goal were to teach you about mornings. But the goal is to teach you the language mapping of a morning. And there is a profound cognitive reason they start exactly at the moment of waking up.
Which is?
Episodic memory. Human brains did not evolve to memorize isolated data points. We are
Yep.
notoriously terrible at remembering random lists.
I can't even remember my grocery list half the time.
Exactly. What we are hardwired for, however, is narrative. We remember sequences of events. Ancient oral traditions use chronological routines and stories to pass down vital survival information because our brains naturally latch on to the this happened and then this happened structure.
So, by using chronological order, they're hooking into a biological cheat code.
Precisely. They are mapping the new vocabulary directly onto your likely timeline of a day. The hippocampus, the part of the brain heavily involved in forming new memories, is highly sensitive to sequential events.
So when Tom introduces the phrase sleep in,
You don't have to build a hypothetical, abstract scenario in your mind to understand it. You just project backward to your own life last Saturday morning at 9 a.m. when you were still under the covers.
it entirely removes the mental strain of imagining the context. All of your cognitive energy can be spent on absorbing the new English words rather than trying to figure out the situation.
Yes, it's like they are building the scaffolding for you, so all you have to do is place the bricks.
And Tom does this brilliantly in the text. He doesn't just say, I sleep in. He immediately defines it by contrasting it with wake up. He says, I sleep in. That means I wake up later.
He provides the exact context.
Right, and then he gives a specific time, around 9 or 10 o'clock.
He is creating a semantic web. He is linking a new, potentially confusing phrasal verb sleep into a foundational concept the learner likely already knows, which is wake up.
And Lily reinforces this momentum beautifully. She jumps in to validate him, saying, nice, sleep in is a great phrase. What next?
She acts as the engine driving the chronological narrative forward.
So Tom continues his morning sequence. He says, then I make coffee, eat breakfast, and sometimes read the news on my phone. Which, honestly, sounds exactly like my Saturday morning. I am definitely a Tom.
A lot of people are.
I'm grabbing my phone, I'm making coffee, and I'm moving as slowly as humanly possible.
And that relatability is key. Look at the foundational action words he uses. Make, eat, read. These are high-frequency verbs tied to a sequence of events that almost everyone across numerous cultures can visualize.
But the instruction doesn't stop with Tom. The program introduces Anna to provide a necessary contrast.
Right. The everyday English club instructors aren't just giving you a single monolithic version of a Saturday morning. They are providing behavioral options.
Because Anna is the overachiever. While Tom is doom-scrolling the news with his coffee, Anna says she often goes for a walk in the park.
She paints this vivid little picture. She says, the air is fresh and it's very peaceful.
And Lily immediately highlights the vocabulary. Go for a walk. Great phrase. Lily prompts her for more detail, asking if she goes alone.
And Anna explains that sometimes she does, but often she meets her friend Sarah, and they walk together and talk.
This contrast between Tom and Anna is a highly deliberate pedagogical choice, isn't it?
Absolutely. We have Tom, who represents the slow, indoor, solitary morning archetype. And we have Anna, who represents the active, outdoor, social morning archetype. By providing these two distinct models, they ensure the vocabulary covers a wider spectrum of human behavior.
It's giving the learner the tools to describe their own specific reality, rather than forcing them into a single narrative.
Exactly. If you are a learner and you are trying to map these English phrases onto your own life, you need options. Are you a Tom or an Anna?
Personalizing the learning material is one of the most effective ways to make knowledge stick.
It is. When you can see yourself in the material, retention skyrockets because the brain tags the information as personally relevant.
Okay, so the morning relaxation is great. It eases the listener in, the affective filter is completely lowered, everyone is comfortable, but then the transcript smoothly pivots to Saturday afternoon.
And the reality of adulthood comes crashing in.
Yes. Tom says, on Saturday afternoons, I usually clean my apartment or do laundry. Not exciting, but it has to be done.
It's a very strategic moment of honesty in the text. Lily responds by laughing and saying true, but even chores are good English practice. Clean, wash clothes, tidy up.
Now, I want to push back on this, though. If I am spending my hard-earned money and limited free time taking a language class, I want an escape.
You want the fun stuff.
Exactly. I want to learn how to order a cocktail in a Paris bistro or how to navigate the Tokyo subway system. I don't want to learn how to say, I am folding my socks. Isn't there a massive risk of boring the learner to death by dedicating focus to domestic chores? Why not focus entirely on exciting travel or hobbies?
That is a very common objection in language learning, but it fundamentally misunderstands how fluency actually works. If you only know how to talk about going to the beach or eating at Michelin star restaurants, you are missing the vocabulary to describe 90% of your actual existence.
That's fair.
What Lily, Tom, and Anna are doing here is building a complete, functional vocabulary ecosystem. Life isn't a permanent vacation.
So you're saying a language learner needs the mundane just as much as the glamorous.
Arguably more so. Fluency is the ability to navigate daily survival and routine communication. By explicitly including the boring tasks, cleaning, doing laundry, washing clothes, tidying up, they are equipping the learner with the language needed for actual lived reality.
It grounds the learning.
Exactly. Think about it. If you move to a new country, you're going to need to know how to ask where the laundromat is long before you need to discuss abstract philosophy.
That makes a lot of sense. The vocabulary ecosystem needs a balance of the exciting and the incredibly boring. And the text creates this really sharp juxtaposition when it moves into the evening.
Right, after the chores are done.
Yeah, after Tom finishes his mundane chores, Anna chimes in with her evening plans. She says, "In the evening, I like to watch a movie or cook dinner. Last weekend, I made pasta with tomato sauce."
Notice the specificity there. She doesn't just use the abstract verb cook. She says made pasta with tomato sauce.
Right, it creates an immediate sensory detail. You can visualize the red sauce. You can almost smell the garlic.
That shift from abstract to concrete language is crucial for memory consolidation. Cook dinner is a conceptual category. Made pasta with tomato sauce is a specific episodic memory.
And the brain likes specifics.
It loves them. The brain stores sensory details much more efficiently than abstract concepts. By providing that concrete imagery, the instructors are making the vocabulary sticky. And again, look at the lifestyle contrast they build here.
Because Anna is engaging in a domestic hobby, taking the time to cook a meal from scratch.
While Tom, true to form, says, "Wow, I just ordered pizza, but sometimes I invite friends over and we play board games."
I love that Tom is just relentlessly Tom throughout this entire transcript. But look at the different vocabulary sets required for these two lifestyles. Anna needs cook and make. Tom needs order, invite, and play.
It highlights a really interesting sociolinguistic point. Our lifestyle choices dictate our linguistic needs. Anna's evening is self-contained. Her home is a sanctuary for personal creativity and relaxation.
And Tom's evening is social and convenient. His home is a gathering place.
By showcasing both, the text demonstrates how vocabulary functions in different social contexts. Lily reinforces this immediately by highlighting the phrases. She says, invite friends over, excellent, and play board games is fun vocabulary.
She acts almost like a curator, pulling the most valuable pieces out of the conversation and putting them on display for the listener.
That's a great way to put it.
So we've journeyed through Saturday. We've had the slow morning, the productive but boring afternoon of laundry, and the evening split between homemade pasta and ordered pizza. It's a very personal day.
Mostly contained within the walls of the apartment or a local park.
Right. But then the transcript does something really structurally interesting. Lily asks, what about Sundays?
Yes, the entire scope of the lesson changes here. If we look closely at how Sunday is portrayed in the text, the focus shifts entirely outward to the broader community. The vocabulary strategically expands its radius.
It's widening the lens.
Exactly. On Saturday, the linguistic focus was on the self waking up, making coffee. Then it moved to the home cleaning, doing laundry. Then to chosen peers inviting friends over. But Sunday breaks out of that personal bubble.
We see that immediately with Anna. She takes the lead for Sunday morning and says, on Sunday, I usually go to the market in the morning. I buy fruit, vegetables, and sometimes flowers.
We are now engaging in commerce.
We are out in a public space interacting with the community. The verbs change to reflect that. We get go to a specific place and buy. And she's dealing with categories of physical items. Fruit, vegetables, flowers.
It's a beautiful progression because it mirrors the psychological stages of cognitive development in a child.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, you start by understanding the immediate self, then you understand your immediate physical environment, then your peers, and finally you understand your role within the larger community. Anna going to the market represents that outward step into the wider world.
That's fascinating. And Tom's Sunday activity continues this theme of broadening the circle, but in the direction of foundational relationships.
Right. What does Tom do?
Tom says, I often visit my parents on Sunday. We have lunch together, and sometimes we watch football on TV. So we've moved from the wider community back to the core family unit.
And Lily immediately steps in to attach emotional value to this vocabulary. She says, that's so nice, family time is important.
which is nice, but it's more than just polite conversational filler.
Right, much more. By attaching the concept of importance to the actions, she makes the vocabulary associated with it more resonant. Visit, have lunch together, watch football. These are no longer just isolated verbs on a whiteboard. They are intimately tied to the concept of family connection.
If you are listening to this and you are trying to learn something new, framing your progress this way changes everything. You aren't just memorizing a random disconnected list of weekend words. You are literally learning how to verbally construct your expanding world.
From the moment you open your eyes in your bedroom to the moment you are sitting in your parents' living room.
Yes, and the Everyday English Club instructors clearly know exactly what kind of architectural structure they've built, because Lily uses this moment to provide a capstone for the entire chronological journey.
She says, and notice all the verbs we've used, and then she rapidly lists them out for the listener.
Let's run through that list. She says, sleep in, make coffee, go for a walk, meet friends, clean, watch a movie, cook dinner, invite friends over, play games, go to the market, buy groceries, visit family, have lunch.
That summary list is a vital tool for cognitive consolidation.
Why is that?
Throughout the text, the learner's brain has been working hard to process the context. You're understanding the jokes, visualizing the pizza, following the narrative of the weekend. That requires a lot of cognitive load.
Right, you do a lot of mental juggling.
Exactly. By presenting a rapid-fire list at the very end, Lily allows the brain to review the material without the distraction of the surrounding dialogue. You already understand the context perfectly. Now you can just focus on the core linguistic blocks.
And Anna follows up that list by pointing out, yes, these are all things real people do, and you can use them to talk about your weekend too.
It entirely demystifies the process.
It really does. You don't need
Yeah.
to be discussing high art or complex politics to speak a language. You just need to be able to tell someone you bought flowers and watched a football game.
That's the core of human connection.
But this brings us to the final section of the source text, which I find to be the most compelling part of the entire deep dive. The transcript shifts gears. It moves away from what to say and dives entirely into how to learn.
This is undoubtedly the thematic climax of their lesson. Up until this point, they have been providing the tools, the verbs, the nouns, the contexts. Now they are actively trying to shape the psychological mindset of the learner.
Tom initiates this shift by suggesting a highly practical, low-barrier exercise. He says, try writing 3 sentences about your last weekend.
And he provides a very basic template. On Saturday, I watched a movie. On Sunday, I went shopping. I had a relaxing weekend.
I love the constraint there. He isn't assigning a 5-paragraph essay. He is asking for 3 sentences.
It's manageable. It's safe.
But the advice that follows this assignment from Lily and Anna is where the real gold is. Lily says, perfect advice. Don't worry about making mistakes. Just try. Every word you speak helps you improve.
And Anna follows up with, and remember, even small progress is still progress. Be kind to yourself.
Let's pause on that phrase. Be kind to yourself. It is doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting in this context.
It is. Learning a new language is an inherently vulnerable, often humiliating process. As an adult, you are used to being articulate, capable, and intelligent. When you learn a new language, you are stripped of all of that.
You revert to a state where you cannot fully express your thoughts, your humor, or your nuance.
It is deeply frustrating. The instructors in the text are actively trying to dismantle the barrier of fear that comes with that vulnerability.
The fear of sounding stupid. It's universal. Whether you are learning English or trying to learn how to code or even picking up a new sport, that fear of getting it wrong and looking foolish paralyzes us.
Absolutely.
When Lily says, don't worry about making mistakes, just try, she is explicitly giving the learner permission to be messy.
And from a neurobiological perspective, making mistakes is not just an unfortunate side effect of learning. It is the fundamental mechanism for learning.
Oh, really? How does that work?
It's a concept known as the prediction error in neuroscience. When you attempt to use a new word, your brain makes a prediction about what the outcome will be. If you make a mistake and then receive a correction, your brain generates a prediction error signal.
And what does that signal do?
It triggers a massive release of neurochemicals that promote neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself.
So the error itself is what forces the brain to adapt and remember the correct version next time.
Exactly. You form a much stronger neural pathway when you make an error and correct it than if you had simply guessed the right answer by chance. The mistake signals to the brain that there is a critical gap in its map of the world that needs to be bridged.
That reframes the entire concept of failure.
By telling the listener not to worry about mistakes, Lily isn't just offering empty platitudes, she is encouraging the exact behavioral condition that leads to faster acquisition.
But there's another piece to this puzzle. Anna says, even small progress is still progress. This feels like the antidote to the burnout that hits everyone about 3 weeks into learning a new skill.
The 3-week wall, it happens to everyone.
Right. If you expect to be perfectly fluent in a month, you are going to quit. But if you celebrate the fact that you successfully remembered how to say do laundry, you will keep going.
What Anna is talking about here is managing dopamine regulation over the long haul. Dopamine is often misunderstood just as the pleasure chemical, but it's really the chemical of motivation and pursuit.
So it's about the chase.
Exactly. When you recognize and celebrate small progress, your brain releases a small spike of dopamine. This spike acts like a chemical high five, telling your body, whatever you just did to get this feeling, do it again.
You are literally hacking your own motivation system.
Precisely. If you only reward yourself when you reach ultimate fluency, your dopamine system will dry up long before you get there, and you will abandon the pursuit. You have to manufacture those small wins along the way.
And the Everyday English Club doesn't just offer this psychological advice in a vacuum. They actually build an interactive community architecture right into the source material to support it.
Yes. Throughout the transcript, they do the standard internet housekeeping, mentioning, subscribing, liking, and sharing, but the real interactive element comes at the end.
Lily says, tell us what you do on the weekend. And Anna explicitly prompts them. Leave a comment below. On the weekend, we'd love to read about your life.
This is a vital part of the pedagogical strategy. When we learn in isolation, motivation inevitably wanes, and the fear of failure becomes magnified in an echo chamber because there is no external perspective to balance it.
By asking for comments, Lily, Tom, and Anna are fostering a digital community. They are creating a space where learners can witness each other's attempts.
They can see each other's mistakes, which normalizes the struggle.
And we can't forget Tom's crucial addition early on. He tells the audience, we read every comment. It really makes our day. That simple sentence changes the entire dynamic.
It really does. He is validating the audience before they even write a single word. He's making a promise that your effort to practice will be seen, read, and appreciated by a human being.
It creates a safe, reciprocal environment for practice. You aren't just shouting broken English into the void of the internet. You are participating in a dialogue.
This external support system is critical for mitigating the anxiety we talked about earlier. It keeps the affective filter low, even when the learner is actively being asked to perform and produce language.
I want to extrapolate on this idea for a moment because I think Anna's advice, be kind to yourself, reaches far beyond the confines of a language learning exercise.
I completely agree.
Think about how we approach productivity and skill acquisition in our modern lives. We are obsessed with optimization and perfection. But when we remove the crushing pressure of getting something perfectly right on the first try, we actually accelerate our growth in almost any field.
It applies to everything. If you are learning to play the piano and you mentally berate yourself every time you miss a key, you are going to associate the piano with negative emotions: stress, inadequacy, frustration.
Eventually, your brain will convince you to stop sitting down at the bench.
Exactly. But if you are kind to yourself, if you look at your hands and say, hey, I transitioned to that chord progression slightly faster today, and small progress is still progress, you are feeding that positive feedback loop. You are triggering that dopamine release.
The instructors are teaching the language, but beneath the surface, they are teaching resilience.
They are. When we synthesize everything we've looked at today, the seemingly basic transcript about weekend chores reveals itself to be a masterclass in instructional design.
They hook the learner with a universally appealing, low-stress topic.
They structured the information chronologically to bypass cognitive load and hook into episodic memory.
They provided contrasting behavioral archetypes, the homebody and the socialite, to ensure a comprehensive vocabulary ecosystem.
They moved from the personal to the communal to demonstrate the expanding utility of the language.
And finally, they provided the neurological scaffolding necessary to sustain the effort, emphasizing community, error correction, and self-compassion.
It is truly remarkable how much deep psychological strategy is packed into a casual conversation about Saturday and Sunday.
We have explored how the Everyday English Club uses the highly familiar timeline of a weekend, from hitting snooze and doing the laundry, to the richness of visiting a local market and sharing a meal with your parents, to build a robust, relatable foundation for a new language.
But the most valuable takeaway, the core message embedded in their teaching, is that progress requires the courage to try, the willingness to make messy mistakes, and above all, the grace to be kind to yourself.
It is a powerful reminder that knowledge is only truly valuable when it is connected to our lived reality. The words sleep in or buy groceries are essentially meaningless. They're just arbitrary sounds in the air or ink on a page until you, the learner, attach them to your own sensory memory of a lazy Saturday morning or a bustling Sunday market.
The genius of this everyday English Club material is that it forces you to make that deeply personal connection. It forces you to look at the mundane details of your own life and find the tools to articulate them.
And that leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We've spent this entire deep dive looking at how narrating our daily boring routines is the key to unlocking a new language. We've talked about how doing laundry or making coffee provides the perfect mental scaffolding.
Right.
But think about this. How much more mindful and appreciative might we become of our own lives if we paid that same close, intentional attention to our everyday actions in our native tongue?
Oh, wow.
If we stopped taking the mundane for granted and really noticed the peace of making that morning coffee, the quiet satisfaction of a clean apartment, or the simple joy of walking through a park with a friend. Maybe the secret to a great weekend isn't just what we pack into it, but how closely we actually pay attention to the simple things we're doing.
That is a wonderful perspective to take away. It completely reframes the mundane as something worthy of observation, articulation, and ultimately appreciation.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the everyday, the mundane, and the brilliant psychological ways we learn. I hope you found as much insight and inspiration in Lily, Tom, and Anna's conversation as we did. Remember to stay curious, don't be afraid to make those necessary mistakes, and in the words of the Everyday English Club, have a wonderful weekend.